the Hi folks, this is going to be a comparison video. Now I've got my Moji here. We've called our Moji Bailey. I have done a box opening of Bailey, and I've done a how to use video. So if you would like to see sort of box opening and functionality of Bailey, I'll put the links to those two videos in the description. But this video is not going to be looking at the functionality of Bailey. Instead, I'm going to compare Bailey with two other interactive robotic animatronic dogs. So we're going to be looking at things like Bailey's movement in comparison to those dogs, and his styling and his size. I've had to put Bailey on this hard floor because when I did my how to use video, I was just totally wrecking the backdrop that I've got. He's quite boisterous, so I've put him on a hard floor today. So when I wake Bailey up, I'm going to use his sit command card to put him in a sitting position, so that we can compare what he looks like with our Joy for All dog and our Furreal Cookie dog, because they're already in a sitting position. He's a very boisterous dog and very fidgety, so probably have to use this several times to keep getting him to sit. So we'll wake Bailey up. Okay, so now we can have a look at Bailey's size next to first the Joy for All pup. So as you can see, when we put them next to each other, Bailey's probably about the same height, especially when his front legs are pushed forward like that, but he's a lot longer. I think that Bailey is actually a more sort of realistic shape than the Joy for All when you look at them sitting from a side position. Bailey's head also, he's got a much longer muzzle, and I think the shape of his head is more like a real dog than the Joy for All. Putting Furreal Cookie next to him, pretty much the same. Is maybe slightly taller, but a lot shorter in the body. So next I'm going to put Bailey in a lying position and move the so I'm going to put Moji in the lie down position and then repose the Joy for All and the Cookie dog, so that we can see what they look like when they're all lying down. I think I've just woken Charlie up, and we'll put Bailey in the lying position. So looking at them lying down, we can see that Moji's got a longer body, and again I think his body sort of shape is a lot more like a real dog proportions than with Charlie. And looking at them all together from the front, Bailey sort of has his head more up, you know, you can sort of look him in the eye, whereas the Joy for All and Cookie, they're kind of facing the ground all the time, facing the floor. So the next aspect I'm going to compare the tails on the dogs. The tails on Cookie and the Joy for All are a lot shorter than on Moji. And in this aspect, again, I think Moji is, again, more like a proper size tail you see on the dog, rather than this little stump that the Joy for All has and Cookie. Turning the dogs on the backs, you can see that Moji has got proper paw pads similar to the Joy for All. And he's got them on the front there. Whereas Cookie doesn't have any paw pads, just has fur. And like the Joy for All pup, you can see Moji's paw pads on his front paws when he's lying down. Comparing fur now, I've always thought that Charlie, our Joy for All, has got a lot nicer fur than the Furreal Cookie. It's a lot longer and softer. Moji's fur's very similar in its length. Not quite as soft as Charlie's, but I think in looks it looks really, really good. Particularly around the muzzle, where you've got these sort of like little sort of frizzy curly bits. I think his muzzle's gorgeous. It's quite short round Charlie's muzzle. So yeah, I would say that the fur on Moji overall, I prefer it, and I think it's got that bit more realism. So, having gone over all the sort of physical characteristics of these dogs and comparing them, I'm now going to switch all three dogs on and look at the movement that they have. Okay, so I've woken up all the dogs now. Bailey, sit down. So if we look at Charlie, Charlie's head moves around just in like one axis, and Cookie's head moves in the same way. So Cookie and Charlie move their head in the same way, but Charlie tends to move his head a bit more often than Cookie, but as you can see, move in the same way. Bailey's head moves in quite a different way. He's got this business of cocking his head to the side if you say his name. Bailey, like that. Sit. But his head also moves forwards, so his head moves in that way as well as that way. So it's got two axes of movement. So all three dogs wag their tails. So we'll have a bit of a tail wagging competition now. So this is Charlie. I'm giving Charlie a stroke. So as you can see, there isn't much movement to Charlie's tail. Hardly moves at all. It's just like a little twitch. Cookie and Charlie are having a conversation at the moment. They are actually having a conversation. They respond to sound. They can keep going for ages. I wonder what they say to each other. And now we'll look at Charlie's wagging tail. So Charlie can wag his tail like a little twitch as well. But Charlie seems to be able to wag his tail in slightly different ways. So his tail wags that way, but also can wag a little bit that way. Bailey. So as you saw in that last little sequence, there's a little bit of variation in the way that Bailey wags his tail. And he also seems to wag his tail a lot more. So all three dogs open their mouths. But Bailey doesn't seem to quite open his mouth as much as the other two. He will open his mouth, like, say, if he's eating something. So I'll just give him something to eat now. Yeah, he's opening it a little bit, but it's a lot more subtle. Let's see. No, he's opening it more. So again, there seems more variation. If he's just barking, his mouth just opens a little bit, but if he has something like a biscuit and that he's crunching, it'll open quite a lot. So yeah, there's more variation again. And all of these dogs open and close their eyes. Yeah, Charlie's closing his eyes. And Cookie's closing his eyes. Now, when I first saw Bailey, I didn't actually think he had opening eyes, because on these dogs, their eyelid is like part of the fur, so it's really noticeable when they close their eyes. But with Bailey, he actually has a separate eyelid. It's not the fur that's been pulled around. This is actually a plastic eyelid that comes down. So it tends to be less noticeable when Bailey closes his eyes. Bailey closing his eyes. Well, he's just blinked there. One thing about Bailey's eyes is when he does close them, it's really, really fast. Much more like a blink, a quick blink. And he'll also close his eyes when he's going to sleep. So I'll show you folks what he looks like when he's closing his eyes going to sleep. There, he's closing his eyes to go to sleep. So his eyes will stay closed now while he's asleep. Which is a difference with these dogs, because these dogs, when they go to sleep, they might close their eyes and snore a bit, but then their eyes open again, which is a bit odd, really. So I would say, from comparing these dogs, that I think that Moji, even though Moji is just a toy, compared with the Joy Furreal, which is meant for adults, I think Moji's styling overall is probably more realistic. And I think Skyrocket's done a really good job in getting lifelike animations. For the moving parts that Moji has in common with the Joy Furreal and Cookie, I think that Skyrocket has done probably a better job, in that there's more variation in those movements, and I think they're more lifelike. Hope you enjoyed that comparison, folks. We'll be doing others in the future. Thanks for watching as always, and see you next time.